Alrighty, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shoshani Perez, and I am the first year experience advisor at Northwest Indian College. I've had the great honor of serving in that capacity for, I think I am going on year 4 or 5 now. And then I served in admissions for 4 years prior to that. So the reason that we are here is I wanted to provide some training and some information on JICS. So just a brief agenda. So we're going to cover what JICS is, right? It's this, everybody says it very differently. Who uses JICS, why you should use JICS, helpful JICS tips. Then we're going to go really in depth and break down. That's what I'm hoping the majority of this hour will be. And then hopefully we'll have some time for more in-depth questions here at the very end. So what is JICS? JICS is your student portal, or a portal that connects what we have as a student information system, which is known as JICS. It connects that system to you as a student. So it's basically the ability for you to see your information in an online platform modality. It was created roughly 10 years ago. It was actually created when I first started as a student at Northwest Indian College. Before that, they did not have a system where students could view and review their information on their own personal basis. And then it's also ever evolving. So I really want to let you know that there are going to be more pieces that are going to come out. There are also pieces that they may take away as we are as we're just continuously ever evolving. It's a system that we use, that we created. But it is a really great system, and it really is a system that empowers students to be able to have access to their own information and gives you a little bit more independence in regards to what you need and when you need it. So you don't necessarily have to rely on staff at the college. So who uses JICS, right? So it's not just students. So advisors, faculty, and students are all users of JICS. Primarily, most of the time, students use JICS, but advisors and faculty use it as well. So for advisors, so what do we use as an advisor? What do I primarily use JICS for? So obviously I use it for registration for courses, adding and dropping courses for you as a student. I can check on your financial aid status. I use some of the tools that are in there to assist with degree and educational plans. I can check for transfer credits. So again, it's just another connection between the student information system, JICS, which is what we use to house all of your electronic file, and you as a student. So that's what we primarily use as advisors. This training or this session is definitely going to be a little bit more focused on students. So if I have staff that are in the session, if you want something faculty driven, or if you want something advisor driven, send me an email afterwards, and I'm very happy to go over it. There's more specific fine-tuned pieces for each of these parties. So this is primarily what advisors use it for. Faculty use it to submit midterm grades, final grades, incomplete agreements, grade changes, and they can view their course rosters that way as well. So faculty use it for a variety of different things, just like advisors do. And we use it on a pretty continual basis. But right, what are we all here for? We're all here as students. So what do students get to use JICS for, right? You hear this acronym quite frequently of different things that JICS is used for. I always hear JIGS, JIGS. I always hear, that portal, that student portal, that thing. So for students, this is just a small part of some of the stuff that you have access to in this portal. So you used it, believe it or not, you had your first experience with JICS before you were ever even a student. So you actually used JICS to submit your admissions application. So we have, and you'll see kind of down towards the bottom, so we have a ton of online forms, especially while working remotely, or if you are a distance education student. We do have a plethora of online forms that we highly encourage you to use in your student account because it makes processing much faster. It also gives not only us as the staff that may be processing it, so admissions or financial aid, but it also gives you as a student a way to kind of like go back in and check that it was actually submitted or processed. So it's kind of a great like checks and balances sort of idea. You can use it to view your student schedule and transcripts. So I have a lot of students that say, hey, show, I need a copy of my transcript, or hey, show, I need a copy of my schedule. Can you send me one? Believe it or not, you actually have that at your fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without ever asking. You can also go back in time, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. You can go back in time and review other schedules that you have had as well. You can view your financial aid status and missing documents. So this is one that I really highly encourage students to be more comfortable with, and that's one of the reasons that we're doing this. Right now, our financial aid staff, unfortunately, is a little bit small. We do have some staff that are healing from different things that have been out sick, and they are a little shorthanded. But with that being said, you have access to viewing your financial aid information and even submitting financial aid information as a student from your JICS portal as well. You can view your student bill. So if you have questions about what your balance is, there is something that we'll talk about when we get to that point that is very specific about your balance. Submit a copy of your COVID-19 card with your booster vaccination, when we return to campus. You can submit foundation scholarships, and then again, that plethora of online forms. So graduation applications, name change request forms, update your contact information, commencement applications, program of study change request forms, and FERPA. All of these can be submitted through your JICS account or your online portal, okay? We really suggest some of these are actually only exclusively to your JICS account. So your graduation application and your commencement application are very exclusive to your JICS account. We don't print them out or have paper-based copies. So being familiar with those is really important. And some of these you can also, or you may have also submitted prior to actually being a student. There is a couple things that you need to know before we really dive into the website itself. So first is you must log in with your student and staff credential. So first thing first is you do not have access to JICS if you do not have your student account set up. The other thing is that the formatting for signing in is different than your Canvas and your Outlook account. I'll show you, it's really not much different. It's actually a little bit easier. The other thing is that JICS does not like back or refresh. You cannot hit back, you cannot hit refresh. It does not like it. It will throw you an error code and try and kick you out almost every single time. So no back, no refresh. Students tend to use this button, staff tend to use this button. I've been a proponent of that before. Because it's slow. JICS is a slow website because it is pulling in so much information from a much larger database. So you have to be patient. So logging in can sometimes be really slow. If you select one window to move to the next, it can be kind of slow. So you really just have to exercise patience. And it's not perfect, as we have heard, like I tried to submit this form, or we have emails that happen quite frequently. I tried to submit this, and then the admissions office or the financial aid office says, hey, we don't have this. It's not necessarily perfect. It does have some kinks because it is a man-made website, but it does work. And if you can find the ways to utilize it, it will take you a lot further and it'll give you access to a lot more information. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at JICS. So first, in getting to JICS, I have mine open, but if I was a student, I always suggest just going to the NWIC homepage. And here on the left or the right-hand side of my screen, right, just where you would go to get your Outlook or your Canvas, we have the NWIC login. So if you're a student, you go to student logins. It is your second option down. So NWIC JICS. Once you're able to get there, this is actually one of the easier websites to remember. So you just add JICS, JICS, to the front of the NWIC website, and you can get there no matter what. You can also go in, and if you go into Google, you can do a Google search. So we can do NWIC JICS and hit enter. Automatically is the first one that pops up here as well. So I highly suggest once you are able to get there that you bookmark the website, because just like your Canvas, just like your Outlook, this should be something that you should be comfortable using and using very frequently as well. So this is what JICS looks like on a good day when you access the website first without signing in. So I say on a good day because there have been times where JICS can be kind of glitchy. Sometimes the logo will disappear, especially if you use it from a mobile device. The logo might disappear. It might be like formatted just a little bit differently. But unless you receive an email, usually if you receive an email from the IS Information Services Department, generally JICS is up and running just fine. I generally have not had any issues with it. But like I said, if you get an email that says it's not working, that's generally when it's not working. So before ever signing in, you have access to a few things. I really want to heavily note this kind of cookie or crumb trail is what it's called in the world of IT is you are here. So instead of using this back or the refresh button, you can always go backwards by looking at your crumb trail that will show up and appear here on this top bar up here. When you select the word home, you're always going to come back to this screen, even if you're signed in. This is without being signed in. So, and then admissions without being signed in. Again, see, this is not only am I on, Zooming and sharing my screen, so it's slow, but it's always going to be a little bit slow. When you select the word admissions, you're automatically going to have access to this set of forms without ever signing in. So you'll automatically have access to your admissions application. If you're a running start student, a running start application. And then there's a section that says additional forms and it says student services. So there's the transfer evaluation request, the FERPA waiver, program of study change request, COVID vaccination card update, and the FERPA restriction. So these are, you have access not only to these forms here, but you'll have access to these forms when you sign in as well. So these are just kind of some of the basics, and then you can click on financial aid. And again, it's going to take a second to load pretty slowly. And you can see some financial aid information. You can see here that it says awards. So some of this information you do need to be signed in for, but this is just some basic information. So again, you can see the cookie trail here. So I clicked on financial aid and it went to the default page. So I'm going to go ahead and go back home. And I'm going to go ahead and sign in. So you guys are going to see access to my information. I am totally okay with that. That just happens to be the easiest way to do this. So when you're going to sign in, you are going to use the front part of your email address. So if your email address is, like mine is sperez@nwic.edu, you're going to do everything before the @ sign. So mine is just sperez. And then you're going to use the same password that you would use to sign into Canvas and that you would use to sign into your student email. Do not, if it doesn't work, don't go in. There isn't a reset password option on this one, but you just want to make sure that you don't go in and do that. You just want to go ahead and sign into it. There was a point I was going to make about this. Specifically with student accounts, and I just want to make students aware of this as well. There is a 3-time maximum of you to enter your password incorrectly in any of our systems before the system locks you out because it thinks that you were trying to hack in. So if you have tried a couple of times and it's not working, you can reach out to myself. I'm hoping Preston after this will feel more comfortable and make himself available as well if we do need to. So that you can make sure we get your password reset and make sure you're not locking yourself out of your account. I've had many students do that. I'm also one of those people, like if I haven't had enough coffee and I just start going in and trying to log in, I'll log myself, I'll lock myself out of my account. Especially because as a student, or as a staff, we have to change our passwords so frequently. And so since we have to change our passwords so frequently, I have locked myself out on more occasions than I would like to admit. Okay, so we're logged in. We made it through. We had enough coffee. Everything's great. As a student, you are not going to have access to all of these buttons, but as an advisor and as a faculty member, I do have access to all of these. So as I will only work with the tabs that you as a student specifically have. So you've signed in, you come right back to this home page. So it's always going to default to the home page when you log in. Again, if we click on the word admissions, it's going to take a second for it to load. We come right back to that same page that we came back to before we were even signed in. So you have access to all of these specific forms. You will not see admin list portlet, as you do not have access to do any admin work, but trust me, being one of the admins for JICS, you don't want to have access to this. You will still have access to all of these forms. The biggest key thing that I can explain to students, specifically in relation to forms, and we'll go more into forms here in just a minute, is when you sign in, it's actually going to pull in your student information. If you were trying to submit a form without signing into it, it will not actually bring in your information. So you do actually have to physically sign in to pull in your specific information. But again, under the admissions page, you still have access to all of the same forms that we saw before we signed in. Now we're going to start with academics, just because we're going to go from left to right. So academics, this is the one that you as a student are probably going to use by far the most. And the reason for that is that it gives you access to a ton of information that you may need outside of the world of the 24 hours, or the 40 hours a week that that we are working at the college. So the first thing that you can see is my course schedule. If you are a student that is currently enrolled in classes, you will be able to see a schedule pop up here. So as you can see, it says 21, 22, winter, all divisions. Normally there would be a schedule right there, and you can click view details here on the right-hand side. And it's going to take a second. It will open up to this specific window here. And if you had a schedule, again, you can see it down here. This term section drop down bar. So you can click on the little down arrow and you can go back in time. So let's pretend, let's see, we'll go back to the last quarter I was enrolled as a student. So I was enrolled in 2018, 2019. That's when I graduated. And then you just use the search bar. So you just hit the search button. It will take a second and then it will open up whatever schedule you would like it to open up. So let's pretend this is my current schedule for winter 2022. If I wanted to have an actual printable schedule that I wanted to give to I wanted to give to my higher ed, my supervisor, I wanted to tack it up on my wall, on my fridge, you would just hit this little schedule that has like the PDF button next to it down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And what will happen is you will actually get a PDF schedule. You can save this, you can PDF it, you can print it, whatever you would like to do. I know as an advisor, if I register a student, I will also send you a PDF copy. So this is the exact copy that I would save and send to you as an advisor for you to have for your records for you to use if you should need so. So again, we'll go back through that. Remember, it doesn't like refresh. So we'll go back to academics. So right now it's going to show my schedule for the spring because that's the way I left it. But you would see your schedule here. So you can see the title of the class, or the what this is called a course code, and a section, a title of the class, the days and the times that your class meets for that specific class. If you want a PDF copy of your schedule, you would hit view details and then schedule down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And it brings you right to this window. And you can do JICS on a mobile device too. I have often used JICS on my phone as well, just because sometimes I'm, doing something, or, I walked away from my desk, but I have my phone on me. You can use JICS on your phone as well. Okay, and again, because it doesn't like back, we can't hit back or refresh. So we would just go back to academics. The second option you have here is my grade report. So my grade report is different from your transcripts. So grade report will only show you the grades, either midterm or final grades, from a specific quarter. So you don't get that whole entire transcript. So if you want to view your grades at midterms to see what your instructors are submitting for midterm grades, should they do that, you can do that under my grade report, or you can also do final grade report. I have some students that have asked for this specifically instead of a transcript for higher ed funding. So you can do final grade reports. Again, you can go back in time. You can also go forward to 2028. Granted, we haven't had that quarter yet, but you can go back in time. It looks like to 2005, 2006, and you can select a grade report for that. If we were going to, let's see here, we'll just use my spring quarter. So if I wanted to view my midterm grades for spring of 2019, I could do that. It doesn't look like either of these instructors submitted a midterm grade. The printer-friendly custom grade report is down here on the left. Again, that also opens another PDF. If I wanted to view the final grades, it's up here as an option here up next to the term dropdown. So view final grade report. Shows my final grade report. If I need to print a copy for my supervisor, my scholarship, my higher ed, view the printer-friendly custom grade report, and it opens up this window. Again, you can save this, print this. Remember, this is specifically just to this specific quarter. So it's not information for the entirety of your academic career. It's just information for a specific quarter. So your third option is my unofficial transcript. So you would just go ahead and click on view unofficial transcript. And what this is going to do is this is going to give you that transcript that is the entirety of your academic career. So you're going to get a window that looks like this. And if anyone has ever tried to print out one of these windows, it is horrible. It doesn't print out very nicely or very friendly. So what you want to do is normally you will be right here at the very beginning. You just want to go ahead and scroll down to the very bottom. It says custom transcript down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You would select that and you automatically get an unofficial transcript that you can then save or print yourself as a student. So again, if we're going to go ahead and do that, we would just click, we're going to look at the cookie trail up here. So academics, and then we selected my unofficial transcript. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and select custom transcript, and it's going to open a PDF, unofficial transcript PDF file that you can save. Okay, so now we're in the student form. So what Jeannie was asking about earlier. So you would see student forms is under academics. Student forms going to have pretty much any academic form that the college offers or that we have as a virtual form for you to submit. There are only 2 or 3 forms that we do not have for you to submit virtually. One of them is the tuition waiver form. So that is not available to be submitted in the student forms. An add drop form is not available. And there's one other one that I'm going to forget that will eventually come back to me. So those are not available for you to submit as student forms. But anything from contact information, program of study, applying for graduation, transfer evaluation requests, all different kinds of things, pretty much any basic form is available for you to submit. Big thing with forms is they are manually created. Generally, I assist in creating them, or Justin Gould will assist in creating these forms. We have had our financial aid staff create some as well in their specific department. So if you notice things that have incorrect dates or incorrect information up the front, please don't hesitate. You can definitely email me. You can email Justin, and we can go ahead and look into that as an admin and make sure that that information is up to date and correct. We want to make sure that by far all of that information is available and ready for you to use. So under student forms, the options that you will always have is you will always have this my program of study change request submissions or my name change request submissions. You won't have the button that says all, anything that says all and then following the form name. That is an admin privilege so that we can, again, so remember it's that checks and balances. We can go back in as staff and say, hey, Nahrin was working on a name change request form. She started the process, but she didn't finish it. So we can go back in and see if maybe you were partially through the process, maybe you didn't hit submit, all of these different things we can go back in and see as admin. But you can, as a student, you can go in where it says my program of study or my, whatever it is, my program of study change request submissions. You can select that button and it will show you every single time that you have submitted a form. So if for some reason, like Jeannie was mentioning her address, if you were going in and changing your address and you went in and submitted that and you looked and you're like, hey, this hasn't been updated, you can email admissions and say, hey, I submitted my my contact information update request on January 25th. I don't see that it's entered. Can you let me know that you have received it? So it kind of is a great opportunity for checks and balances, which is why I really love using the online form section, because it ensures that it gets to us, so we're not worried about anyone having to scan something and send it off and the server doesn't like it. We know it gets to us as long as you properly submit it. I'm actually going to use the contact information update request because that seems to be the most common, one of the more common forms that students want to use. So you would just click on the form itself. So contact information update request. You're going to be brought to what looks like a new window. You're still within JICS itself. It stays in the same tab. So you're going to have contact information update request. So you're going to see the title of the form. It's going to have an introduction or some instructions, one of the two or both. So this one says this form is to be filled out when updating your contact information with the college. If you are looking to change your name, please back out of this form and submit a name change request form. So it gives you instructions for another form that you could use. And then if you have questions, it has the contact information for the department who will oversee this form. In the student forms, you will always see, usually you'll start out seeing 3 buttons. In the next slide, you're going to see 4 buttons. So you're always going to see view table of contents, next page, and save and finish later. The one problem I have always run into, and it's usually in the admissions application, is students will do save and finish later. Although this is an option, I believe you have to create a save pass key. And if you don't remember the save pass key, you can't get back into it. We can't reopen it for you. So I always encourage students, if you're going to sit down and fill something out, try and sit down and fill it out quick or within one sitting. Generally, something like this will only take you a couple of minutes to fill in this form and submit it. The next thing you're going to do after you read the instructions and you say, okay, this is the form that I want, you're going to go ahead and click next page here on the right-hand side. Remember, now that we are logged in as a student, you are automatically going to have things that are going to pre-populate for you. Again, this form is not meant to change your name. You can go in and delete things and start typing, but we would not use this form to update your information. If this was a name change request form, you could go in and do that, but we want to leave that information correct. So I would have checked and verified that this is my student ID number. This is my first and last name. If you notice, they are all required fields. Also notice now that I'm on the next page, I can go to previous page. So we're going to go ahead and hit next page again. Here is where you're going to update your contact information. So what is the updated mailing address, including city, state, and zip code? So you would go in here and we could do 123 Blueberry Lane. And we live in Bellingham. And please don't abbreviate if at all possible. I have some people that are like, well, not necessarily abbreviate street names, but I've had people that have tried to abbreviate cities. It's really helpful. Or if you leave off the zip code, the admissions office does have to go searching for your address. So if you leave out information, it can make it a little bit difficult to update the contact information. So try and fill it out in its entirety if at all possible. And there is a note here, so please note that leaving out any part of the address will cause the form to take longer to process, and that is actually very true. So updated phone number. So if I was updating my phone number, I would just go in here and put in my phone number. It gives you the formatting. You can have an updated alternate phone number. If you are not wanting to submit a phone number, if you're just updating your address, you can leave these sections blank. You do not have to put information in, just fill in the information that you are trying to update. Once you have filled out this page, you'll go ahead and hit next page, and you're going to initial it. All of these student forms, every form that you submit will require your initials to be submitted at the end. This is basically another reassurance that it is you as a student submitting the form, not somebody submitting it on your behalf or changing their address to receive, you know, the address to receive your financial aid checks or things like that. Again, it is a requirement, so you would just go ahead and put in your initials. It doesn't have to be capitalized. It can be whatever it needs. You're going to, again, hit next page. And then it's going to give you an opportunity to review and submit. So you can see all of the changes that you have made in this form and make sure that everything is filled out correctly. If there was something that was required that you didn't submit or you didn't attach or put information in, it will tell you, Shanna forgot to put in, her student ID number, whatever it may be, if you tried to delete that out and not have something in there. Down here on the very bottom, you don't have to save this page. You can actually have an opportunity to receive a confirmation email or an acknowledgement that you have submitted this form. So you can put an email address in here. If you're signed in, it's going to default to your student email 9 times out of 10. If not, you can also put in your Gmail, your iCloud account. We encourage you to have it go to your student email account, considering this is a student contact form. And it's information surrounding your student account, but you can put in an iCloud email should you choose to. And then in order to actually submit the form, you are going to hit the submit form button. I'm not actually going to submit anything. I don't want to update my contact information because then I'd have to go back in and update it later. But you're just going to submit the form. So here's the thing that Jeannie was talking about. This will not automatically update your contact information. This form is then sent over through the virtual web space into Genzabar, our student information system, where our lovely admission staff will go in and actually physically process the form and update the contact information for you. It does take 2 to 3 business days for us to do that. Most times it will happen within 24 hours, as long as we're not super busy. So usually at the heights of quarters or heights of registration can take a little bit longer, but generally it's within a day. So if you send in a form and you literally just hit submit, please be kind and gracious to our staff and don't email and say, I submitted a form, why is it not updated? It does take a minute to process, and depending on what the staff are doing, depends on when they're able to get to that form. I do want to mention one other thing specifically with submitting forms. There is one right now. So this name change request form, it doesn't have the ability to upload something into it. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, need to talk with Patricia about this form specifically to see if we can upload something. So name change request forms, it does have a 2-parter. You have to submit the form, and then you have to submit a copy of your social security card with the new legal name on it in order for us to process the change. So you do receive instructions on that at the very beginning of the form and in the follow-up email as well that you receive. I believe I have every single one of these forms set up for you to receive a confirmation email that it was submitted, a confirmation email that it was unsuccessfully submitted, and then within those forms, within those emails, we try and put in additional instructions should you need so. So all of these forms are relatively easy to submit. Again, contact information update, programs of study, and the transfer evaluation and graduation are usually the most common, but contact information is by far the most common. What Jeannie was talking about at the very beginning of the session is up here in the right-hand corner, you see this little silhouette here. Many students will try and click on this and go to my profile and settings, and then go to contact information and try and update their contact information here. This is not a form. You can't actually update anything in here. This used to be an option, but they have not had this as an option since 2019. So you can't update your contact information this way. It has to be under academics and then under student forms. So under academics, under student forms, under contact information update request. Okay. The next tab that you as a student will have, there's only 3 more tabs to go over. We'll go over this one will be relatively quick. So under finances, you automatically, when you come under finances, this is where you can view your bill. So you can't get an invoice from looking under finances. You do still have to contact student accounts to receive an invoice, but as a student, you can view your bill at any time. I know our student accounts office also sends out monthly paper bills to whatever mailing address we have on file, but you have access to it should you need to print something for a tribe or anything like that. So under finances, you can click on my account balances. It's always going to, this one specifically does that little window. You're going to automatically get student AR current year, and it'll have a number and it'll say due. This is my one catch. Some students, and I'm very much giving credit to students, found a glitch in the system that unfortunately I don't think we've been able to fix, is that sometimes this amount right here, I've seen some people are like, it says it's $5,000 that's due. It's been some weird astronomical amount. And they're like, but I received a financial aid check for my Pell Grant back in the 3rd week or something along those lines. For some reason, there is some sort of glitch that this number can be inaccurate. So what I always suggest to students is, yes, look at that number, try and, write it down, think about it, but then also go to course and fee statement. So this second bar down here, so course and fee statement. This one is a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to click on quite a few buttons, basically the same button a number of times. So after I clicked on course and fee statement, we get this little bubble. Then it says generate my course and fee statement. We have to click on that bubble, wait for it to load. Again, we have to do it again. So view my course and fee statement. Now we're at a PDF. And now you have an actual physical bill that, should you need to, you can go ahead and print. This is the one that you would go all the way to the bottom, and you would want to check down here to make sure that your amount due or your statement balance, whatever that number is, that should be accurate. This is a report that our student accounts office uses. So the reason you have to click on the button so many times is when you're actually clicking on the button, it's actually actively running that report to pull your information specifically for you to have a bill to look at. So it's not something that's just kind of there when you click on it. That's why you have to click on it so many times. It's because it's coming out of a specific report that our student accounts team uses. I do realize that this does need to be updated, as Joelle no longer works in our student accounts office. So that's something I can mention to our student accounts team. But you can see that there is a plethora of information. My bill is super long. I've been at the college for a very long time. But you can print out a bill. So again, if we were to go back to finances, so course fee and statement, you're going to click on generate my course fee and statement. You're going to wait and then view my course fee and statement, and it's going to open the PDF. I also encourage students to use your course fee and statement to see what has been paid on your account. We often as advisors get questions of, did my tribe pay on my account? Did GA pay on my account? Did my employer pay on my account? We as advisors cannot see that for you specifically. So we always will encourage you to look at your balance statement in your JICS account or email student accounts. Because you can see any transactions, whether it's a payment or it's a charge that has been placed on your account. So it's just something for you to be comfortable with and to look at itself. So I'm going to cover COVID-19 really quick, and then we'll move backwards and we'll go to financial aid. So COVID-19 is a new button. That's why I said JICS is ever evolving. So COVID-19 quite literally has two things underneath it. One is your COVID-19 vaccination card upload. So this is where you would go ahead and submit a picture of your COVID-19 vaccination card. You do have to resubmit it if you have been boosted, as that's a new requirement for the college. But you do have to do the COVID-19 vaccination card upload if you are going to be on campus, whether in-person classes or actually physically coming to visit the campus when we are open. As we're working remotely right now, there isn't anybody for you to actually see on campus or come into the buildings. But when we do return to on-campus work, you can come into the buildings. You just need to submit your COVID-19 card. The other one, and I encourage you all as students to take a look at this, is the COVID-19 emergency assistance. So there is some assistance type funds that can help with things such as childcare, housing, utilities, healthcare, and mental health care. You can submit that form. So I have a lot of students that have been asking about that form specifically. It's not under financial aid, and it's only specifically under COVID-19. And the tab for COVID-19 was developed so that it was easier for you as students to find that information and find information that was specific to COVID-19. Because once the pandemic goes away, or we run out of that emergency assistance fund, that application will no longer be open. So our financial aid staff, along with Victoria Rataskett, our Dean of Students, decided to create that COVID-19 tab specifically for a place that has all of the information, the applications, and the COVID-19 card submission. So it was a little bit easier to find. So again, COVID-19, there's only two things under there: the emergency assistance and submitting your card. On to the last and final one, the big kahuna that I really wanted to host this training for because I wanted you as students to be comfortable with it, which is financial aid. So financial aid, there's a ton of information in here. I have to give a large amount of credit to Shana Nishiyama, who is our financial aid director. She does a really great job of trying to keep this page on JICS up to date with all of the current information and opportunities that are available to you as a student. So I have to give her some really big credit for that. So up here on the left, you can see announcements. So there's a high priority announcement about Here Student Aid. It is a little bit outdated. Unfortunately, Shana is out right now. But fall 2021 disbursements. So if Shana posts an announcement, you can come in to JICS and see that announcement. Under financial aid awards, we always get students saying, "Hey, Sho, what am I going to get in financial aid?" You as a student can actually see that on your own by clicking financial aid awards. Mine is automatically going to default to the last year that I received any award because I haven't been a student since 2019. But you would get a specific description of whatever financial aid status you're going to receive, the total amount, and then fall, spring, and winter. For some reason, I think it's alphabetical order. So that's why it goes fall, spring, and winter. But you can go in and see the amounts that you're getting for each quarter, and then it'll add them all down on the bottom. So if you're wondering, hey, I was supposed to get the Colbell Scholarship, has that come in yet? Or I was awarded the American Indian Services Scholarship, has that come in yet? You can actually go to the financial aid awards and see your awards list and see what funding has actually come in. So for instance, if I was to look at, let's look at like my second year here, you would see federal Pell Grant. So if you receive the Pell Grant, it tells you your total award amounts, and then it goes by quarter. I was a work study at this point. So this is what the state need grant was my work study. Or no, I'm sorry. The state need grant is now the Washington College Grant. So it does have a new name. It's Washington College Grant. And then I was a work study. So here's my federal work study. If I had a scholarship, there would have been scholarships listed in there as well. So great place for you to view your award amounts. This does not substitute, however, for an award letter or a needs analysis. So if your scholarship or your employer or anybody asks you for an award letter or a needs analysis, those do have to come directly from financial aid. I believe at some point there was talk about making those accessible to students. I think they changed their mind because there was a glitch in how it uploaded or the way that the report was run. And so they chose not to upload it. We've done a lot of trial and error for students to have access to certain things. And generally I'm the guinea pig for them. And so if I find that it just doesn't work, or as a student, I wouldn't intentionally use it, in order to keep this as simplistic as possible, we just generally don't use it. But we try to make sure everything works. So again, I would go to financial aid to go backwards. Use that cookie trail. And then this is another big one. So financial aid document tracking. So if you have submitted your financial aid and you're like, man, what in the world am I missing? Why have I not got my Pell Grant? Why have I not got my Washington College Grant? You can actually see where you sit and what documents actually need to be submitted if you are missing something. You're like, I know that financial aid sent me this letter, this verification letter. I don't know where it's at. You know, my dog ate it, my baby chewed on it, the cat decided it was, to be used as a scratch post, whatever it may be. You can actually click on view financial aid document tracking, and it'll automatically populate for the last year that you submitted your financial aid, your FAFSA. So in this case, I haven't submitted my FAFSA since 2019, but if you have your current FAFSA submitted, it'll be 2021 to 2022. You will see what says received documents. So you'll see what our financial aid office has and has entered into the system. So ICER is what we get when we have received your FAFSA, and you can see when that was received. And then down here, if you are missing any documents, you will see a list of missing documents. For me, in this particular year, I did not meet the federal minimum. I was over the maximum amount for receiving financial aid, which is what no need federally ineligible means. But you could see things here from a verification worksheet, copies of tax returns or tax transcripts. You can also see if you are a foster youth and you need to submit a ward of court status, you would see that there. The number one thing, and this is, I really, really heavily want to mention this, the number one thing that most students will see here is the financial aid data sheet. This is needed for you to receive your Washington College Grant. Whether you've been awarded the Washington College Grant or not, if you have been awarded it and you have not filled out the financial aid data sheet, you will not actually receive that money until they receive that. Now, many of you may ask, Joe, where do I find that form? You're talking about all these forms are accessible. Did financial aid make that accessible? Yes, they did. So if we go back to financial aid, so Nora was like, hey, I'm getting the Washington College Grant. It says I need a financial aid data sheet. Where can I submit that? So under complete your financial aid file, here is the financial aid data sheet. So you would fill this form out, and it's an online form. So again, it's submitted through the portal, and then our financial aid staff can go through and say, specifically, Emma Holly Sitting Horse can say, yep, Nora has submitted her financial aid data sheet. It meets all of the requirements I needed her to submit. I can now release her Washington College Grant to her. And it is something just that simple. So if you have not received your Washington College Grant, you were supposed to please check to make sure that that form does not need to be submitted. And if it does need to be submitted, please do so. You can also upload financial aid documents. So if you need to submit materials for verification, you can actually upload them here instead of sending them in. It's actually kind of nice. So you can do that. And then the very last one is scholarships. And you do have to be signed in to complete the scholarship section. And if there are any scholarships that are open, they are posted here. So right now, the only one that's open is the Foundation Emergency Assistance application. Generally at the beginning of the year, the other one that Shayna has open is the foundation scholarships. And so you would be able to go ahead and submit those applications. You also have access to the financial aid handbook, which is your responsibility as a student to have read that in its entirety. And that's actually one of the things I believe that when you submit your financial aid data sheet, or there's something that you have where you actually have to agree that you have understand that or you have access to it.